Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Board of Health meeting for March 25th, 2026. Just a reminder, we are being recorded. I will now call the meeting to order. Do a roll call first.
Tom Pickner here.
Joyce Gilmore here.
Colleen Straponi here.
Jack McClellan here.
Alan Greenberg here. Thank you very much, everyone. We will move to good and welfare for the public. Is there anyone in the audience at home or present that has anything that has to do with good and welfare for the public?
No.
All right, we're going to move on to new business. The first thing we have is Save On Gas, 147 Hartford Ave East, tobacco violation. Sir, please approach the, if you could give us your name and the address of the business, that would be great.
Yep, my name is Kareem Georges, and the address is 147 Hartford Ave.
Good. Pauline?
Actually, refer to Casey,
All right.
please.
Yeah, we have Kathleen Dufour from Massachusetts Health Organization Association from the Tobacco Alliance. She's online with us.
All right. Kathleen, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'm Kathleen Dufour from the Massachusetts Health Officers Association, the tobacco inspector contracted to do the inspections and compliance checks for the Mendon Board of Health. So are we looking to, do you have the,
We do.
okay. Would you like to read the report that I had sent to you?
So it was on March 10th, 2026, that a youth access tobacco compliance check was conducted at Save On Gas, and tobacco sale was conducted for a youth under the age of 21. Fine has been given, as this is their first violation. It is a state violation. It's a mandatory $1,000 fine and suspension of the permit up to 30 days.
Okay. You want to give us any further recommendations, Kathleen?
No, my recommendation would be that you would follow the state law and the minimum fining guidelines imposed, set by the state.
Any comments, Colleen?
No, I agree with Kathleen as far as the fine goes, and it was the board's pleasure as to the length of the suspension in accordance with the law. I did speak with Kareem a couple of days afterwards. We had a conversation about it. He's gone to great lengths to comply. He has all the signage in place. We gone through the requirements and whatnot of the state as far as the pleasure of having a tobacco permit. He was not present that day that the underage individual went in and advised him that he should be come before the board tonight.
Right. Sir, would you like to address the board?
I would, thank you. Yeah, we had a great conversation. I regretfully this happened. We just opened less than 7 or 8 months ago, so it's a newer team. This was a newer individual. I believe everything happens for a reason, and this led to some really tough, good conversations, refresher with the team. I think towards the beginning, we were just trying to figure out how to get everything open and squared away, but now we've had some renewed conversations. I've, redistributed the signage in the store to make them, more visible and present. They're right by the registers. Doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, you're getting ID'd. One of the things I did in the register was I changed some of the settings so you can't actually proceed with the sale of tobacco or alcohol without having to scan the ID. So even if they forget or choose whatever, it just won't let them. So that's it's going to lead to potentially some tough conversations with customers who feel like they look old enough, but that really doesn't matter. I even wrote out these statements, got the team to sign off on their understanding of how severe this all is. And this is a screenshot of a very strongly worded text that they got as soon as I hung up with you, with all of their acknowledgements. And, sadly, I had missed a couple weeks because my father-in-law was in very tough shape and he passed away last week. So thank you. So that's why I wasn't as present as I needed to be, but I can assure you, and I have all of their sign-offs, that it will never, ever, ever happen again. And I have a check here.
Well, I think that, that is very, very good that you've done that.
Thank you.
And that you accepted it and you didn't get cranky. So
That's what it is.
it is very important. And you've got it.
Thank you.
And I think that you've done a good job.
Thank you.
Tom?
Same, tough situation. Thank you for kind of making the adjustments that you made at your end, and
We're a young team. We're learning. We've figured out the process. I can assure you it's not going to happen again. And I believe in what we're doing to build a really great business and one-stop shop for the town of Mendon and the community. I think we're doing well, and I will not allow something as simple or small as this to get in the way of that. So
I appreciate the fact that you stopped the inaction right at the register.
yeah,
That's a wonderful system. I've heard about it in the past. So that really is a great fail-safe.
Yeah.
If someone forgets the procedure or you have a new employee that is learning the procedure, that's a great tool to have. Refresh my memory as to, on a first offense, selling to a minor, how we have ruled in the past so that we're consistent on the suspension of sale.
For a first offense is 7 consecutive business days.
And that's how we've ruled in the past, even though.
That'd be the establishment.
Up to 30.
Up to 30, correct.
I appreciate everything that you've done. The board really tries to rule consistently as to how we treat every tobacco seller. Tom, based on that information, what do you think about an actual suspension of sales?
I think for me tonight, I would have to defer and take the matter under consideration. I would not be able to render a decision tonight.
Okay, Joyce?
Well, I tend to think that he understands this perfectly. He was at a disadvantage in the beginning. And he's got his information all set. So I would feel like a 30-day suspension would be over the top.
Okay. Colleen, recommendation at this time? I mean, we have, one board member that wants to discuss this further. Joyce feeling that, 30 days would be too severe, which is the uppermost limit. Your opinion from the field?
Well, I mean, just for consistency, you know how I am.
Mhm.
I would say that if in previous cases that you've, for a first time offense, suspended it for 7 days to maintain the consistency, but that is the pleasure of the board. The state law says up to 30 days. The board could, Tom's not ready to make a decision. I don't know if the rest of the board is. You could take it under advisement. You could suspend it for 1 day if the board so chose to do so. I will be visiting the store anyway, because you do for an inspection, and I'll take a look at everything that Kareem has put in place. And if the board wants to continue it to the next meeting, I can let the board know then the steps that he's taken, unless you're willing to.
No, I like that recommendation. And that sort of goes along with my board members' as to what they're thinking about, talking about. Do we need to make a motion to further discussion and make a decision next meeting?
As far as the suspension only, I mean, he has to pay the fine, so
Okay.
we can take the fine, but if you wanna, continue it to your next meeting, as far as the suspension goes, that's your pleasure.
All right, I would like to ask for a motion to have further discussion on the suspension portion of the violation and to make a decision on our next meeting. Anybody interested in that?
Well, that seems to be a 2-week thing. I mean, it truly doesn't make sense to me. Again, you know, I think that he's been punished. I mean, he hasn't been able to do that, selling or anything, so.
Well, no, presently he is able.
Oh, yeah.
No, we haven't suspended his permit yet.
Right. So for us to defer and more discussion, make a decision at our next meeting is not going to prevent him from selling now because he's paying the fine.
Right,
He has made steps. Colleen is gonna go in and do an inspection because the inspection is due anyway. And that gives us an opportunity to think about it for the next 2 weeks and then come together and decide what kind of a suspension up to 30 days, which generally it sounds as though we all feel that without saying it is maybe too severe. However, in the past, we have to contemplate the fact that we have given a 7-day suspension for a first violation. So that gives us all time to go home, think about our point of view, and then have a discussion in 2 weeks to handle that side of the violation. So that's the motion I'm looking for.
That's a big motion.
It is. You know me, I could talk. Anybody interested in that?
I just did follow up to what Alan said, what you're taking with Alan. But just change your,
no,
so you'd be in a position, you want to make that decision tonight.
right.
Okay. And I would ask the chair, what would be your viewpoint?
I could really go either way. I would like to hear the results of the scheduled inspection.
Well, he's due for a, food inspection.
Okay,
So I can at the same time just confirm that, and I have no doubt that it's not, hasn't been implemented whatsoever. If that eases the board's mind, if that has no bearing on the board's mind, then, you know, it's your pleasure as far as if you vote for, you know, a 1-day, 7-day, 30-day suspension tonight. That's the board's pleasure.
I could go either way, but again, that scheduled inspection, even though it's not for tobacco specifically, it does give our health inspector an opportunity to put her eyes on the improvements that the gentleman has made.
Mhm.
And that may, be honest with you, that may influence my decision as to how many days for the suspension.
Mhm.
We have a new business to consider. And on the other hand, we have the fact that in the past, a 7-day has been our rule. That's how we've, so that would give me an opportunity to maybe adjust accordingly and have a good reason to adjust accordingly. So I have no problem waiting 2 weeks for all of us to mull it over and revisit it. I don't think it'll take a lot of time to revisit it because we can all kind of think about the situation, not in a meeting setting, you know.
Mhm. So let me do this. Let me put a motion out there to the board.
Could I ask a question? So is that going to interfere with his selling? It
No.
doesn't interfere at all.
You know, he's been selling since the incident. They've still been able to sell tobacco Because we haven't had our meeting till tonight. So there's been no interference whatsoever. But again, like I said, the board can vote tonight, you can vote 1 day, 7 days, 3 days, whatever you want. Or continue it.
So the motion I would put out would be to defer the decision on the suspension aspect of the violation until the next meeting.
Can I have a second?
Reluctantly, I will give you a second.
Okay. All in favor?
Tom, I,
Grace, I,
Alan, I, and I respect your decision. As I'm sure everyone does. So thank you for voicing that. That's what we're here to do. All right, sir. We will make a decision in 2 weeks.
Excellent.
You're welcome to come to the meeting. Okay,
I'll be.
so I'll give you an advance invitation. And again, the board appreciates everything that you've done so far.
Thank you.
To try to correct this. Thank you.
Kathleen, do you have
Excuse
anything to add?
Yes, I would like to. I do want to say, Kareem, I really appreciate the effort that you've taken to educate your staff and make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. We do, when I came for your inspection and met you, I could tell that you were being very thoughtful. I did leave a checklist there, and there's a QR code that you can have staff members scan to watch a video that talks about carding all tobacco purchases. And I would also remind the board and you, Kareem, that when during the suspension period, whatever that ends up being, all of the tobacco products need to be removed from display and placed. It's most beneficial if it's off-site so that nobody is tempted to make a sale. But as long as it is bagged or boxed up and put into a back room where it is not on display, and put a sign in the door so that customers will know that that they can't buy tobacco, and they won't go in and be upset with your clerks. Clerk safety is very important. We don't want anybody to get mad at them about it. And then I would just say that I would strongly urge the members of the board to really thoughtfully consider the precedent of giving one retailer a lower suspension period than retailers have been given in the past. We want to ensure equity across all retailers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Definitely things for us to think about over the next 2 weeks.
sure, yeah.
All right.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Again,
Can I leave
you have
this up with you?
an invitation to the next meeting, which will be 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
All right, you all set?
All set.
Thanks,
All right,
Kathleen.
thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, the next topic. Do we want to skip
Skip the
and
next,
come back?
come back to it, correct.
All right, so folks, we're gonna go to old business 5 Harrington Street. We have some guests. Would you like to come forward and name and address, please?
Cindy Van Slet, 32 Crestview Drive.
Hey Cindy, how are you this evening?
Good.
Okay. I know we have some data.
Mhm.
Do we want to start with the data, or would you like to start?
Oh, no, that's fine. The day.
So, on March 18th, myself, Michelle Delmar from the DEP and Avery Vreeland from the DEP, went to, Crestview Drive. We went up to take a noise reading. And Avery had the equipment issued by the DEP to monitor sound noise from the school. We went to the edge of the property and they set up their equipment. We spoke with the trucking company. We advised them that we would be measuring the noise levels. We asked them to operate. They were actually conducting a class that day. So we asked them to operate for 5 minutes. I took the phone number from one of the workers that was there and called him after the 5 minutes. They took the decibel readings. We asked them to shut down completely, which they did, and we took the readings for 5 minutes with no noise from the school whatsoever. So Avery wrote in her report that we went to the edge of the property. You could see Route 16. You could hear Route 16 from the property. That we did the first reading with the school operating. It was a 5-minute sample. Background sounds included birds, a dog was heard. Overhead plane, street traffic from Route 16. And she recorded L90 of 41.6 was recorded. The sampling occurred from 1:44 p.m. to 1:49 p.m. Reading 2 was the source was off, meaning the school was not operating whatsoever. 5-minute sample. Background sounds included a bird, a dog, an overhead plane. There was street traffic from Route 16. An L90 of 35.7 dBA was recorded. Sampling occurred from 1:53 p.m. to 1:58 p.m. The equipment that was a Quest Sound Pro battery was charged prior to the start of the measurements. All the batteries are above 80% charge with a limited difference between the charges. The change in noise from source on to source off is 5.9 dBA, which is below the state noise policy threshold of 10 dBA. Noise from Route 16 appeared to be a significant contributor to the overall background noise. Given the variability of traffic, a longer study may slightly change the difference in background. And this was the data that was recorded. So basically they found that the school, the noise from the school at your property line was below the statutory. It didn't exceed the statutory minimum of 10, but it was the noise from Route 16. And on that day, there was a tractor trailer going up Route 16. There was one coming down Route 16. There was a school bus going up. All of that, it contributed to when the source was off as far as the noise level goes. I think that them taking out the backup noise meters helped significantly in the impact on your overall property. While we were there, and we were there for, I don't know, 20 minutes to 25 minutes, the school was operating. We actually stood there while the trucks were coming down. They actually come down. We saw them go circle like right in front of your property and go up. There wasn't any noise that we were like, whoa, wait a minute. And she had on the noise meter. So that was the report.
All right, Cindy, I'd like to give you an opportunity before my board members speak.
Route 16 is Route 16. I notice a big difference after 4 o'clock. I don't think Route 16 goes away at 4 o'clock because there's a lot of commuter traffic. There is a huge difference. I wasn't there when you were there. it's very surprising to me. When the trucks do drive by, you don't, it's not much. It's that, I don't know what they're doing that makes those noises, but they are very loud. Did you hear any of their horns? Because I brushed my teeth the other day. I had my bathroom window open. They blew their horn 3 times in the amount of time that I just brushed my teeth. I know that and I appreciate the fact that at 4 o'clock, I can guarantee that they're done. That has been amazing. I find that a dog doesn't bark from 8 till 4 to be called a nuisance. When the dog is barking, it's a nuisance. When the dog's not barking, if he's just running around his yard, it's not a nuisance. But there's a huge difference that I would love to see the monitor set up for a week and just have it be real for what we get. I don't know if it's the fact that you're out in the yard and you're getting more of Route 16 crossed this way. Meaning, if this is my house, the school is here, Route 16 is over here. So the way my house is, inside my house, when I open my windows, I don't get Route 16. I get trucking company. And yes, there are times when it's manageable. And then there's other times when they're doing these screechy things. And when they're doing, beeping the horn and doing trucky things. I don't know what the terms are, but I don't think a 20-minute when you've gone to the school and told them do it. I mean, I would drive around too and try to make it as little invasive as possible if I knew people were taking readings to try to shut down my business versus the reality. My husband was out picking up kindling in the yard for our fireplace. Now that the snow's gone, you can actually see it. And it was unbelievable. And I read what you had written from a meeting that I didn't come, that they were adapting additional simulations within their school to completely eliminate any possibility of noise. We haven't really noticed any difference except for the beeping, as far as, and it's not constant. It's not constant, right? Just like I said, a dog barks. He doesn't bark from 8 to 4 to be a nuisance. When he barks, it's a nuisance. It's just that you didn't capture that I would really like to have readings. I mean, we know that they do schools sometimes. They have classroom work or whatever. So they're not, but oftentimes there's 2 trucks that are going and it's a lot. It's a lot. And I appreciate the effort and the amount of time that has been put into this. I understand that. It's just that I don't think it's a true reflection of what we're experiencing.
I'm sorry, but I don't know what else we could possibly do. They do have simulators in the classrooms, but they are still going to continue to have classroom activity outside.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I don't know that the recorder can be set up for a week. I don't think the DEP, I mean, it's their equipment. They come with the specialist that's trained to operate the equipment. So I am not sure. I mean, I will absolutely ask, but I think I already know what the answer is. As far as the school goes and notifying them, I mean, it wasn't for a heads up. This was so that we could get a source on and a source off timeframe. I can ask Michelle if you think the reading would be different if we didn't let the school know we were in the woods. I don't know that what Michelle's response would be, but I can surely ask her.
And it's all I can ask, I guess, at this point, because it's a hard pill to swallow. It really is.
Okay, and I understand that this has become an emotional part of your living where you live. So why don't you take a moment, if you would? And I'd like to hear from my fellow board members, but I still want to give you an opportunity
Mhm.
to speak after you hear. So Tom, you want to comment on the topic?
Well, I just have to ask, is this DEP's definition of testing the problem for 5 minutes? That's what they're saying now. There's no, so a 5-minute test says there is no issue. I personally have a problem with that. Because I know there are variations in sound. Because I've been up there myself to the properties. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's not quiet. So what I really need to do is get a handle on what DEP is defining in terms of a time length. Because to me, one test for 5 minutes doesn't cut it.
What would the time frame be that you would like?
I had an expectation that we'd be doing multiple tests over multiple days over the course of a period of time, potentially over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, multiple times at different times of the day, different days of the week. Because I know, I could have told you, it's not constant from 8 to 4. It ebbs and flows. But the question is the amount of time that it does become a nuisance or a potential problem. I won't say nuisance. Does that in and of itself constitute a problem? And I guess this is where I need to understand what DEP is defining. If they're saying a 5-minute test and they don't pick up anything on their instruments, defines whether it's something's a nuisance or not, I personally have a problem with that.
Okay, if I may,
Mhm.
Tom, would you write that down or someone write that down, what you consider to be a reasonable window? Just repeat what you just said so that we can ask that and see if they'll meet it.
I probably have to go back to the recording.
No, I'm just, you said multiple times over a period.
Well, yeah, I just had an expectation that the plan would be that we'd be doing multiple test points, multiple test dates and times to take the test. I didn't,
Over a period of,
over a period of at least for a week anyway, if not a
Okay.
couple of weeks.
okay, so
Because
that's.
for the most part, the operation of the school
Mhm.
is pretty consistent for what they do each day, every week. I don't think they have a quiet week and a busy week, a quiet week. But I had an expectation it'd be multiple testing and it would carry on throughout the course of a day where you'd register data over the course of a whole day for maybe 2 or 3 days or 5 days or something. And you take that whole data and then you put it into a packet and then does that constitute a nuisance? And it may not, but I'm just, from a pure data perspective, one 5-minute test just for me doesn't cut it.
And like I said, I just want to make sure I understand and we understand
Yeah.
what your expectations were, because I don't think we ever went into that depth.
But what we did back some time ago, I actually referenced the expectation that it
Okay.
would take a while to do it.
All right, well, excuse me for missing that.
No, that's quite all right.
But again, that's why I wanted someone to write that down.
I wrote it down.
Okay, thank you. You want to go further? You want to give Joyce an opportunity?
Oh, if you're interested, yes.
Joyce, please.
Well, unfortunately, because I live on Route 16, I have become accustomed to it. And I mean, it is constant for me, constant. So, tend to be a little,
Well, imagine if that constant is then amplified by the fact that you now have tractor trailers in your backyard making all these training noises. It's in addition to, I have, Route 16 is there. I can hear it, but it's not, I don't find Route 16 an annoyance because of where I am and the positioning of my house, maybe. The other thing that I would like to say is because I'm hearing it like through the windows, it's not at ground level, it's above. So there's also, the higher you go, I think the more you hear.
Okay, so are you talking about the second story of your house?
No, I'm talking about from ground level, right?
Right.
You go up on my deck and then you go up
Okay,
the
so,
stair to the house and then you've got windows that are,
right, so the
Yeah.
first and second story of your house, not, I just want to make sure I understand how high you're talking. Okay,
yeah, so, so it's not just if I were standing here, like if I just stood there, I wouldn't be able to see into like my bathroom window. It's up another, 5 feet, which I think, so you have, the rolling stuff, you've got the scrub on the ground, you've got some trees, but the higher you go up, sound will travel differently than if you're, 2 feet off the ground or 20 feet off the ground. So yeah, in my bathroom upstairs, I hear it a lot more because it's higher. I can see down and see like the full trucks. I could count the lug nuts. I mean, it's like I'm seeing, right in there. So the sound upstairs is louder than downstairs, which is also different than if you're just standing. So it's like I'm opening my kitchen window. I have a slider on my deck and it's coming in my house. Route 16 is not coming in my house. Tractor trailer noise is coming in my house.
just a few things. I'm sure that the people testing in Colleen were not trying to influence the.
I'm sure they
From
weren't.
the driving school.
I'm sure they weren't.
The intent of the testing was not to shut down the school.
I'm not trying to shut down the
Okay,
school.
I'm trying to comment on statements that you made,
Oh, okay.
okay? I'm just attempting to,
Not trying to shut down the school.
right, okay? I was told by another resident of the neighborhood maybe 3 weeks ago that it has become, and I want to be very careful here, I don't want to speak for someone, I'm just repeating a comment that was made to me. We were thanked as a board, even though this came to me directly, for the work that we have done on this issue, trying to convey to the driving school about being a good neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
and that the sound issue wasn't a problem for that resident anymore.
Anymore because the beeping. Yes.
Okay, so I felt good about that. He didn't speak for you.
No, it's very limited now. It's very limited. But I can walk my neighborhood and as soon as I get close, it changes when they're doing things, it's not just driving, it's when they're doing things. You can hear the and all of that. And it may, because it ebbs and flows, right? Like a dog barking, like I said, it's like you can't say, all right, well, this is the constant noise that I now adjust to, It's kind of like when you turn on the fan when you're cooking pasta, you turn on your,
Last fan, yeah.
it's loud and you can't wait until you're done cooking and you can shut it off. So it's one of those things where I have no control over it, but I do know at 4 o'clock it ends, and it's blissful. I would love to not know when it's 4 o'clock because of the change. And know that I might just hear a plane. I might just hear a dog. I might hear, something else. But it is, as soon as they start up, you hear we've got a slight, maybe that's your 5 decibels of, just being in business. But it's the other things, they're yelling to their truck drivers. I can hear them yelling probably because they have to yell to have it be heard by the people inside the trucks. There's a reason for that. If it was just a car, you probably wouldn't have to yell. It's a tractor trailer. It's making more noise. You have to yell. So it's hard.
May I ask, I'm sorry, Joyce. Humor me just for a moment.
Yeah.
The yelling that you're talking about, was that going on previous to when they removed the backup alarms, et cetera? Were you hearing the yelling then?
And now.
Okay.
Yes.
The yelling to the drivers has been a consistent.
Yeah. And again, it's not constant.
Right.
It just might be like, hey. Yeah, whoa.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if because they removed some of the safety equipment.
No,
You
could always hear them.
that they had to come up with a different method of communicating with the drivers.
Yeah.
Yelling always existed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Joyce, please, I apologize.
I'm wondering now, because now the leaves are gonna come back on the trees. Does that make a difference?
Now, because it seems to me that the school gets busier during the summer, number one, and it slopes down to my house. You've got trees and the poof is way above that I will still be able to see them. So there's not a lot of, looking through foliage that happens because it's dense. So all this sun doesn't get through. So you get pricker bushes more than you have, greenery and trees and.
Well, again, I'm going to say this because I want to be truthful. I live right on the corner of Route 16 and Washington Street. And it's constant. There's ambulances, there's constant, they're coming from everywhere. There's always noises, there's big trucks that huge, there was a trailer truck that went by the other day that was about this size of this and a half coming up the street and making noise. So I'm sympathetic to you, but I've been there for 60 years. So I'm used to it, I guess. But some days it's like crazy,
And if somebody took
but it's constant. It doesn't end at 4 o'clock.
No, but some days it's worse, right? Or certain situations make it a little worse. And if somebody came for 5 minutes and said, it's a little hard to swallow, but I had probably had that same truck go by my Route 16 if he went toward the hospital. And that doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. I am also near Route 16. But that's not the noise. This is above and beyond. So just imagine if Route 16 just exploded in your backyard. And that's, I don't know how else to explain it. Yes, I'm near Route 16. That doesn't bother me. It doesn't keep me up. It doesn't grate on my nerves. It's what's coming from a business that is operating. And that's where the frustration is.
I think, you know, we hear you and we appreciate, where you're sitting. I know that I was impressed by the report, as to the detail, the weather conditions, the wind speed. I agree, it's only a snapshot, of, you know, the total 8 to 4 on one day. Tom brought up what his expectations were. We can go back to the DEP and see what they say. I consider it that we were very fortunate to have the resource. It took a while to get it in motion, but this isn't something that just anybody can do. So it takes some coordination and fitting into their schedule that they already have.
Absolutely.
So I'm appreciative that we were able to take that next step. All we can do at this point is, you know, try to go back to the DEP, express Tom's expectations, which, you know, are more collection points for data and see what the response is. I think they've made a lot of steps to try to be a good neighbor. And I don't know exactly, depending upon what the DEP says, where we can go from here. I mean, our goal is always to try to give someone relief or to help them, you know, solve an issue. I know that your group said in your initial letter that you wanted to make it clear that you appreciate our truck drivers.
Oh, absolutely.
So in order to have qualified truck drivers, there has to be truck driving schools, and they have to do what they have to do to train those truck drivers. They have to locate a school somewhere. And in order to have qualified truck drivers, that may mean that it could be in someone's adjacent to someone's neighborhood. I'm sure that it's not intentional to, you know, infringe upon your tranquility. But, you know, we'll keep pursuing this as long as we can. And, you know, I look forward to seeing, you know, I can say I look forward to seeing what the DEP's response is to collecting some more data points. And that's all I have at this time.
No, I understand and I appreciate it.
Fellow board members?
Well, hopefully, when future establishments like this they wish to set up shop in the town of Mendon, they'll automatically go under a site plan review, unlike this particular location did not.
Which is unfortunate that it's harder to undo something than it is to make it right to begin with.
Just because establishments have to exist to do things, but it's still, I'll go back to what I said before, doesn't give them the right to interfere with other people. If there is, again, we haven't determined that there is enough, you know, an actual noise nuisance. But again, this 5-minute data point in my book just isn't sufficient enough to make that determination. And again, if it turns out that it's not, more data points, not a noise nuisance, you know, by definition, then I don't know what we could do beyond that.
Well, I guess the first thing is Colleen is gonna
Gonna ask,
see what happens with, you know, our response.
Mhm.
And Joyce, anything?
You know, again, I'm used to noise, I guess, and I feel badly that, you know, that it's doing it, but you know, I lived across the street when it was an airport. There was an airport there, and that's not there now, fortunately.
Trucking company.
Yeah, the trucking company and all kinds of things. But so again, I don't mean to sound superior. I don't mean it, but I live with it all the time. So, I mean, mine doesn't stop at 4 o'clock. It gets worse at 4 o'clock.
Right, and for me, it gets better.
Right.
Even though Route 16 gets worse, it gets better. It gets better.
All right, so at this time,
Yeah.
we'll see what the DEP comes back.
Appreciate it.
Tom's recommendations for more data points. And feel free to, you know, come anytime you see this on the agenda. I would say that, you know, next meeting or the meeting after, we may have a response and be discussing it. And, you know, please come back.
Yeah, I'd say the meeting after.
But that's kind of where we're at tonight. You know, and thank you for your interest in coming forward continuously. It takes a lot to keep coming back and trying to get it right.
Yeah. No, but I appreciate it. I really do. I know you've got a million things on your plate, but you know, when I read things that say, oh, there's, you know, there's no, you know, they're going to make it so there's no more noise. It's like, I'd love that. But I wanted you to hear it from me that that's not the case.
No, absolutely.
You know.
And everything we have on our plate is of equal importance.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Just as
you.
an added note, I will say, because I have been in communication with residents there. This is not just coming from one resident,
Okay.
just a
Yeah.
FYI.
It has, the group has shrunk, but it hasn't been eliminated. You know,
Okay, and that's why I was trying to be very careful.
no, it
It's
definitely
equal
shrunk,
to
because you used to
me.
hear it way down, you could hear the beeping. But now it has shrunk, which is good for them,
Mhm.
you know, but there's still a few of us.
All right. No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So we're gonna go back to 4B. E-cigarettes, vapes, nicotine pouches, nitrous oxide discussion.
So the board wanted to talk about, especially on the nicotine pouches, possibility of banning them from the town of Mendon. So I just threw everything on there. See what the board thoughts were about it and discuss.
All right, I'd like to start with any recommendations from Colleen. Be them high level. You know.
Well, the other
have to
community
be-
that I work in, they banned, vapes and cigarettes a long time ago.
Who did?
The other community that I work in, the Board of Health.
Oh, okay, yep.
Yep.
in that community.
They are going to, discuss nicotine pouches as well soon.
Good.
Do we know what the broader situation is in the state of Massachusetts in terms of
Well, how many?
communities banning, not banning
Right.
these?
I know that the other community I work was the first. I think there's a few, I mean, honestly, I'm just guessing at data. I highly doubt. I would be surprised, let's say, if nicotine pouches have been banned by anybody yet. But we can definitely put that data together for the board.
Aren't they relatively new?
Yes. Yes.
Tom, you want to continue? Joyce?
Well, I definitely, from a nurse practitioner point of view, and seeing how people die from things like that, And to let kids be using them, I think that there's something hugely wrong with that, hugely. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so you're talking about everything on the list?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. I just want to be clear.
no, I think that all of it is totally unhealthy. I mean, wickedly bad, unhealthy. But, you know, once you've got an addiction, it's hard to, and that's an addiction.
You want to continue?
Well, all these products
Yeah.
are age based in terms of their sale, right? They're all 21 and older.
Mhm.
Right? So none of these products theoretically should be sold to anybody under 21.
No, because if they do, then you know what happened.
Right. So what I'm getting at is, and I understand the concern with the danger here, especially with the pouches.
Right.
Now we're potentially getting into setting one product apart from another product within the tobacco nicotine world. If we say that we want to consider banning these pouches and whatnot, why not just make it theoretically be consistent, should be universal and ban all tobacco products in the town? Because otherwise, we're picking and choosing. That's a concern that I have as far as trying to do that. Because now we're not being consistent. Because they all are, in personal view, and I respect those that do smoke. And they have the ability to do that. They're of legal age. That's their choice. So I respect that. I personally don't like it. And I think it's bad, but this is probably great to have either. But yeah, they're addictive. Whether you want to define what's a pure tobacco product versus a nicotine only type product, it's still, they have their elements of addiction to them, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I have to kind of think this through a bit.
Well, can I speak?
Please.
One of the things that I think that, I mean, a cigarette is one thing that you just put here and take it off and put it up. But these things are in your mouth, against your teeth, on your tongue, down into your throat. And I mean, with such virulence, it doesn't make any sense to me, first place. I mean, who would want to do that?
Well, technically, it's not any different than what they used to call skull back in the day, which was loose tobacco, what they call
They
dip,
could chew it,
chewing tobacco. That they do take a pinch of it, put it in between their teeth.
right,
This was just basically filtered loose tobacco, so it's not getting.
right. But what that did do, if
Also,
they,
it causes a cancer and holes in your mouth.
yes, right, yeah,
Yeah, the thing is with the pouch now, from what I understand to Jack's example, before you would have to, spit with the pouch actually absorbs your saliva, so you don't have to spit, is what it is, and it sits there for a longer period of time.
I think my viewpoint on this, and I'll go back to when we voted to raise the legal age to purchase to 21. When it was 18, we knew that 14-year-olds were getting their hands on it.
Mhm.
Because you had some kids that were 18 in high school, and you had some kids that were 13, 14 in high school. And the ones that were legal to buy
right.
could
Give
help
it to
their
their
younger
brothers.
friends. Now that, and part of the reasoning to get it to 21 was to kind of get it out of the high school.
Right.
However, I could make the argument that 21-year-olds are still hanging out with 17 and 18,
Mhm.
especially if they're not away in an academic institution. The trades, sports, are growing and growing, and the age of kids that you're gonna have, or young people that you're gonna have the 17 and 18-year-olds that are out on co-op from a trade school. And they're working with 21, 22, 23-year-olds that are in their apprenticeships. So it's, you know, at lunchtime, it's a very easy conduit to try something like this. Almost like what was that high school environment previously that we, you know, were discussing. I agree with Tom. You want to be careful not to single anything out, but I guess it's the danger of some of these things. When we talk about vape, we've talked about the refills and how easily it's absorbed in your skin if you spill it. Pretty dangerous. You know, I mean, if it's on the coffee table and, you know, your 2-year-old gets into it and gets it on their skin, it could be, you know, extremely hazardous. So that it's not the tool that you vape with, it's the refills that are extremely dangerous. And if not handled properly, can be highly toxic. When you talk about the nicotine pouches, I could easily see a home situation where, again, some child could get their hands on it and it could be extremely hazardous.
Well, let me ask, would you be of the belief that if we would ban it in the town of Mendon, that we've resolved every issue in the household in the town of Mendon?
Absolutely not, because we talked about that when we raised the age to 21.
Right.
And we were one of the handful of towns at the time that were doing that before it became universal in Massachusetts. We knew that if we did it and the next town over didn't, that it was going to come from the next town until the next town got to the point where they raised it also. So it's in Massachusetts, I'll just start there. It's going to be a collaborative effort. And then you have to discuss the border states. You know, if you live in Westminster and you can hop over the line to New Hampshire or Vermont, but there are already towns or cities in Massachusetts that have processes to age out tobacco, period,
Yes.
right? I forget what the birth date is.
Anybody after
There's the millennium, I thought it was 2000.
2000?
I thought it was
Yeah,
Automatic.
so it's actually age, like you have to be, in some communities, 25, and that's what I was gonna say to the board, you could.
I was almost gonna say that because that's with your argument. It's almost like you were saying, oh,
Right.
are you for going up to 25 with the sale of tobacco in the town of Mendon?
Well, again, I'm kind of
We could get that
Building-
information.
building off the reasoning that we've used in the past and the discussions that we've had in the past to make the decision. Because again, to your point, we're not trying to stick it to one particular product. We're not trying to deny anyone the right necessarily to make a decision. We're trying to help without being too heavy-handed. Prevent the problem. I've brought up in the past the nitrous oxide and how addictive it is and how I've seen stories of how many lives it's ruined to the point of death. That's not gonna take the cheese whiz cans off the shelf at the supermarket. But as a board of health, these are the discussions that we would have and the things that we would try to help people deal with. Even though sometimes helping people deal with these things, it may incur a regulation or a age limit or a banning completely if we felt strongly about it.
Well, you kind of go to the posture that Colleen's always had. If you're looking at it from trying to curb something, to see our youth not start to get into something that's not good for them. Education early on. Should there be some sort of educational element that the Board of Health could be part of, initialize or initiate into the school system?
Well, and we've talked about that with having an account that would retain the fine money so that we had funds
To be able to.
to be able to come up with, fund that educational component. Very similar to, I'm sure Colleen and I, growing up in Milford, would remember the police and the colorful drug pamphlets, probably when we were in middle school.
Mhm.
There was a program at that time. And that was part of your education.
Yeah.
Was the awareness and how colorful all these pills were and the whole bit. And, hopefully it was helpful.
Mhm.
But I mean, I haven't seen a program like that in a long time.
Yeah.
So we've had discussions along those lines, Tom, and I'm all for it.
Good.
Even if we had to fund it out of our Board of Health budget. Or we had to get someone to sponsor a program like that. That would be ideal, because now people get a chance to make an educated decision as to whether or not they want to get involved.
We have we have some resources. I mean, we have our public health nurse, we have the MHOA for tobacco compliance, talk with Casey and see if there's any type of material, maybe plan something for, the fall school year. We could do some education in the meantime. Jack and I could gather some data as far as the communities that have adopted basically you have to be over 25, see how many have done that, would have, and how they went about it. We could ask our buddy Ellen to poll the clerks
Mhm.
in Massachusetts, and we could find out the towns.
Mhm.
And also ask about if they've banned, if you're still interested in this, or just do a blanket of the age, or if you want to see how many communities have actually banned vapes, banned pouches, we could probably include that data. But we could definitely do something as far as education goes. And I think that we have some businesses in the town of Mendon that are devoted to the community that would probably, if we did need funds, would probably contribute.
We had an offer one evening.
Yep. And then I think that it might not be a bad idea for next town meeting, because I believe the warrant already closed, for the board to consider a warrant article, for whatever fines we collect,
Mhm.
to have them go into a revolving account, as opposed to into the general fund.
All right, so on that, if there aren't any further comments, I would like to see that information that you're able to gather. And when you do get it, we'll put it on the appropriate meeting.
Yeah.
So whether it's 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now, we'll revisit this, fellow board members.
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Yes,
If I may make a little point of view of my own.
Jack?
I
Please.
agree with Tom not to pinpoint any nicotine product, but I think the board should consider getting rid of the nitrous oxide from tobacco retail permits.
Right.
I don't see any reason why they should be in tobacco retail stores for any purpose whatsoever.
Right.
The nitrous oxide has no use.
Let's add that to our query that we give to our buddy for the town clerk, see if what other communities have banned it too,
Please.
if there are any. And that, and then we could gather that data, give it to the board. We could talk about it some more.
All right, so again,
Because on all 4 products that were discussed tonight will affect one full establishment. You would close them down if you banned everything on this.
and that would be my biggest fear.
Mhm.
Again, to our previous topic, we're not going to try to put anybody out of business. We're just trying to protect the public health and to promote good neighbors. And I was thinking of that. We do have some shops that are just vape, and
Correct.
it would make it, very tough on them. So, again, maybe to your point, raising the age might be a more appropriate first step along with education versus targeting everything all at once and, possibly causing a hardship.
I think that the elevation of the age is probably the proper approach, only because if there is a clerk working now, that it's 25. So you're probably more likely to require an ID. You're gonna ask for an ID. It's hard when it's 21. I don't know.
I would like to see the kind of system that was
And that's
installed,
what
That would like to be the system that was.
but I believe we have other places that,
Maybe
You have a one in.
the same thing.
I would almost like to see that it be the minimum.
Well, is it the requirement that everyone's supposed to be carded for
Yeah.
anyway?
Right.
Already-
But that process, that system stops it.
Well, right, what I'm getting at is, I would call you mentioned, and I understand the point about the age difference. But there already is a requirement that everybody be carded for the purchase of tobacco.
Correct.
So
But we've had cases.
yeah.
And I think that system is essentially a failsafe,
Well, it would be
because the sale cannot proceed
without,
until
Without typing in the
until
birthdays.
the ID is scanned.
Right.
Period.
Yep.
So if Joyce goes in and is clearly slightly over 21, until her ID is checked.
Right.
The sale can't continue. So that might even be something else to consider. I don't know how much those systems are.
now correct me if I'm wrong, as I'm thinking about this, is it tobacco? Are tobacco related products also lumped into this? For example, a lighter?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. A
If
cigarette
somebody
lighter.
wants to buy a lighter,
Yeah,
they're gonna have to show an ID
Correct.
to buy a lighter.
that's in all retail stores. You can't go in.
Walmart.
Walmart, Target.
Aerosol paint,
Yeah,
go to Home Depot and buy a can of spray paint.
But is that because of the
Okay,
tobacco connection?
It's considered tobacco paraphernalia.
yeah,
Right.
product,
Correct.
So I just think, I don't know, part of me says you're kind of going a little.
well, again,
When you're asking for an ID to buy a lighter. I don't know.
further discussion.
I'm just saying.
I get it.
Unfortunately, sometimes when you try to regulate one thing, there's some fallout and
Right.
some things that are related. But
Well, because the easy answer is always to blanket regulate. Instead of thinking things through
Mhm.
and then, which may be a little more difficult, and creating a regulation that kind of makes sense. Instead of just saying, oh, we're just gonna cover everything. That's the easy way out. I just don't.
I agree, and, we can, discuss that when we have some more information.
Yeah.
And make sure that we try not to fall into that same trap. All right, so put that on the agenda when it's appropriate, that you guys have you team have all that information. And we'll have a further discussion on that. All right, we already covered 5. So we're gonna move along to Board of Health admin updates, rabies clinic updates.
All right, so unfortunately, the Saturdays were booking up fast in April, and the ones that we had available, that wasn't available, so we're back in kind of square one with the.
The only thing we could do is we could try to join Milford if Milford was willing to take us on at this point. We always try to team up with other towns. It would be nice for our little area here if we could put something together. So we could either try to team up with Milford or we could try to be proactive and get something scheduled for next year.
Well, that's what I was thinking, let's try and get something, because I know dog licenses have to be by March 31st, according to Ellen's ad on the website. So if we want to do like a weekend at the end of March or the weekend after April, first week of April.
I know my vet said that they've experienced some cooler temperatures in the beginning of April. So they were leaning towards a better date towards the end
For a warmer
of
date.
April,
Okay,
just because the weather is a little more stable. But
so it may be good then?
I don't know.
I mean, it could be. I mean, I would think that there would be no problem with that.
Yeah, but I don't know if it lines up with the timing, because we're working with animal control.
I
Right?
just sent, asking, sorry, not to interrupt, but to your idea about teaming with Milford, I was gonna find out if, Blackstone has already scheduled theirs and if Mendon could join. I just sent a text message.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
I haven't
Good.
heard, of a date, but I'll find out.
Okay.
In fact, I put it, because I'm here, if she responds. Sorry to interrupt.
But in the meantime, I think we should try and get one on the books next year for.
Okay, and if we're gonna go that far out, any of the area towns that we've teamed up with to do things in the past, if they don't have one on their own already scheduled and want to team up with us, I would like to make that offer.
Okay,
I mean, it's always nice to help our neighboring towns because they help us. And maybe we could even establish something to the point where, this year, this town of the group does it, and we could kind of rotate it around if that seemed to work. Good. All right, so I'll let my vet know they're off the hook for now.
well now,
All right, wind waste multi-community update.
all right, so the committees and subcommittees that Colleen and I are part of, we all received draft KP law agreement. We sent it to our town council for their review. Mendon's town council reviewed it, gave their blessing, so now it's back in KP law's hands, so now we're just waiting for the final IMA agreement. So it's still a work in progress.
And how many years?
We still haven't had a mid-committee meeting since December. I guess they want to have this IMA done first before we have another meeting.
Okay. So term and pricing, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
No,
Okay, what about the facility that would burn the trash or dispose of the trash? Is that still kind of,
I'm still thinking it'd be wind waste still.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, I didn't know, I know there was discussion that there might be other plants.
No, we're still working with Willowbray to wind waste for this IMA.
Okay,
It's just a wheelabrator is now known as wind.
Wind waste?
yeah, wind
What
waste.
would you call it?
Wind waste.
Did you say that 3 times fast?
Wind waste, wind waste, wind waste.
Yeah, we did.
all right, so we're moving in the full direction.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much on that.
For those out there who might know wheelabrator, that's all.
Yeah, it's gonna
No,
always.
I know.
Connect
my
the dots.
mind
Connect the
I
dots, that's all.
can't even, you know.
We'll move
I
on
started
to
that.
health agent updates, please.
As far as the rabies clinic goes, there isn't one scheduled for Blackstone yet, so the town clerk's gonna reach out and she's gonna let me know. She hasn't seen one. And for everything else, I mean, it's really been a very, very busy. Working with the senior center and Blackstone Valley Partnership for Public Health on a few cases in Mendon. Some Mendon residents that may need a little bit of TLC. So we're working together, trying to figure out, what we can, how we can assist them and what we can do for them.
because they're lonely or because they're sickly or
Hoarding issue,
Hoarding issues.
what is it?
a hoarding issue.
Oh, yeah.
Hoarding issue. We had another one,
Uh,
that needed a conversation regarding personal hygiene. And we have another case that I'm working with, Generon, from the partnership. So that's been occupying some time. We've had multiple complaints, God bless you, from residents regarding noise complaints, mostly smoke complaints, wood stove that was causing a nuisance between two neighbors. And actually spoke with the DEP about it, worked with John Erickson on it. Come to find out there wasn't a permit pulled, now there is. The stovepipe is in compliance. Talked with Michelle a little bit about, putting a rain cap on the wood stove so that it wasn't, it doesn't come down into the neighbor's yard. We also had an old complaint, that's a new complaint. Someone who's complaining about the noise vibrations from the
Tennessee pipeline.
yeah.
Which pepper?
Tennessee pipeline?
Is that?
Is that down near Bellingham? Is that the line?
It's Northbridge Road, so it was coming from Thayer Road,
Yeah.
the compression station down
Okay, yeah,
there.
that's the Bellingham side of town.
It's, to Northbridge Road is, 7 miles. That the vibrations from the station are affecting her enjoyment of her property. Working with,
Is she on Northridge Road on the top of the hillside there?
I'm not sure exactly, I haven't gone down there yet, but apparently she complained a couple of years ago, it was just before I started here. There was quite an involved investigation into it by the DEP. I spoke with Michelle about it again, she resurrected some of it. Jack and I have been reading it over, planning on going up there, and, taking a look. But, so it's in the infant stages of that. Food truck permits are alive and well. And so we're moving forward. Vanderrock is going to be opening up probably the end of next month. We also have, a lot of interest in any type of celebrations that we're going to have for the 250th. If there's going to be any special events, Vanderrock might be doing something special, other vendors might be doing something special, the brothers might be doing something. So I anticipate that we're going to have a very busy spring, summer, fall season this year. Very busy. I anticipate it. Our Saturday's already between, we have, Southwick Zoo is going to be opening and they're having a big event. So Saturdays in April are already booked.
Again, just to add to that, 250th reference. I know the Mendon Brush Association is working with the Mendon Cultural Council. Because the Mendon Cultural Council wants to do something in recognition of, I don't know if it's one event or a couple of events this coming summer.
Right.
Don't know how extensive it'll be, whether it could involve BOH involvement, but
Right.
they're just reenactments of independent declaration signings. I'm aware of that event, but
So it's already started to be busier than it was last year. And also I have,
Sources available for
You
you?
got your roller skates on?
yeah, we have a complaint from one of the restaurants about their Butters dumpster, so I'm gonna take a ride, Jack and I are gonna take a ride down there tomorrow. Plus, we have all our tobacco packets that Handy Andy over here put together in the calendar, so we're gonna be going and visiting all the tobacco establishments as well.
is that in a set schedule yet, or is that still being defined as to when those visits will?
What'd you say, Tom?
As to when those visits, the tobacco education visits?
Yeah.
Is that set on a schedule, or is that still being determined what days, what dates?
Well, you just pick whatever you want to go out
Yeah,
there.
I just take the packets and just go drive, if I have, whenever I have time to do it.
Oh, I didn't know if there was a set schedule you were trying to follow.
No, I just want to go and say hello, and I
Yep.
haven't seen them. I mean, it's been a long winter.
Yeah.
You know, mostly the retail stores, the restaurants. I did, Fine Line Lounge Friday night, and I did Miss Mendon Diner Saturday morning. Both businesses are doing very, very well.
Where's Fine Line Diner?
Fine Line Lounge
Fine Line Lounge. Where's that?
on Route 16, the
What's
strip
your
club.
Oh,
The newest
You
entertainment.
haven't been yet?
oh. They wanted me to come,
Oh,
but I said no.
So it's nice that the weather is finally clear to get back out and say, you know, visit the establishments and say hello and talk and see if there's any issues or anything. You know, I spent some time with Kareem. Look forward to going back to the store, and talking to him some more.
Speaking about Vanderbilt, would we have any involvement in the brewery aspect of their operation, or would that be outside of our
The
need to?
brewery, yeah, that's the select board
Okay, I didn't know if we had
and
any.
the, ABCC.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah, they're gonna be moving. Lisa came in, what was it, 3 weeks ago?
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, she came in. So they're gonna open up where they are now, and then their plan is to move over.
To where that, they did
Yeah.
that.
it's coming this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are they gonna move there? What are they gonna do?
They have that A-frame that they're renovating right now, and so they have some more like indoor eating type of thing, you know? Especially when it's bad weather, because then they're kind of stuck.
Right.
So she's still trying to figure out the schematics of that, and whatnot, but they're definitely gonna open where they are now, so we'll be going up there, and we're getting, like I said, we're getting food truck permits in left and right.
Would the eating element of that brewery though come under our governance?
Eating all day long.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what, okay, so there's an eating element
Yep,
of that new brewery that will come under our.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah, it's just be the same as the winery, I mean, you know,
Yep.
they have food there, you know, we have to inspect.
Yep.
It'll be the same thing over there, for sure. A bigger area, and like I said, I mean, more, because if they have inclement weather, you know, they lose a lot of business.
Yeah.
in inclement weather. So anyway, we're off and running, how about that?
In more ways than one.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
happy spring, happy summer.
yeah, it's busy, very, very busy.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, topics not anticipated within 48 hours.
Well, there were two that I had.
Please.
The first one came to my attention, I meant to mention it to you. Down on Providence Road, a while back, we had an issue with a gate. That, was it National Grid
National Grid, yes.
took care of for us? Because there was people going in,
Dumping.
dumping things.
Oh, up by Colonial Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep,
so I noticed a couple weeks back, actually, there's a gate on the other side of that that is not up.
Oh,
It's disconnected, it's like leaning. And it looks like it's access into the same area where people were going in before.
throwing in there stuff.
Because the two entrance points, I think, come in like this. So the one on the right now is not,
so they can come cheek behind that tree that's there.
yeah, so it's like if you were going down
Into Providence.
Providence,
Yeah, going down Providence Road.
this would be the first, there's two entrance points.
Right.
Very first one, the gate's
Are we on the right or the left?
on the right-hand side.
Right hand side.
The gate, which is nearer to the road than the other one. The other gate is more back, up off the road a little bit, the one they replaced.
Okay.
But there's another gate nearer to the road that is no longer in place.
Was that the old gate?
Well, there's two gate points. There's this older gate entrance that's not, the gate's not, it's leaning, it's not blocking, it's not in place anymore. And then there was the other gate entrance that was, you had to drive in about 30 feet. That's the gate that National Grid took care of for us.
Correct.
But I think when you come in from either one, they both go into the same area where things were being dumped.
Okay, because I seem to think that when you were going down Providence, that the gates that they worked on were on the left. Because those are the gates that would get you in behind Colonial Drive.
Yeah, we weren't on that side.
Right,
We would do the one on the right going into Blackstone.
yeah,
All right.
but
well,
now, before that one on the right, Tom, there's a couple of big trees there. So it's gotta be, I can check it out, I mean, I go down that
Yeah.
road.
It's before the
Haven't seen-
trees, so the trees are like in the middle of the two
Right.
gates.
I know what you're talking
So
about.
it's the gate on the other side of the trees that they fixed. And that sits in off the road a little bit further.
okay.
The other gate that's now down is nearer to the road
Right.
and the big trees are in the middle.
Have you ever seen that first gate up? Cause I wanna say that's the gate that's always been down. And they purposely put in that second gate further in because the trucks were long.
Right.
And that's why they drove in to stop at that gate to unlock it, then drove through.
That would make sense.
That's what I was told back in the day.
Which could be, but I think they meet, both ways in, meet to the same area. Where the concern was vehicles are going in and dumping stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you can still get into the area through this other gate and dump stuff. Both
Did you
gates,
see anything dumped?
I didn't get out and go
Okay.
inspect. I was gonna, but I hadn't.
All right, well,
Other things to do.
I'll look,
okay. If not, if I have time tomorrow or Friday, I'll take a scoop.
every morning I go by them.
Okay.
I'm on the afternoon, wing, and I'll just bang, all right.
It's a tough corner, you just gotta be careful, because you can pull in.
Oh, we went four-wheeling up there.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
oh, yeah, we literally, we did.
Now, I don't know if both gates are controlled by National Grid.
They should be.
Yeah. it's
Well,
their
yeah, it's their
property.
property.
I think they, I thought it was kind of interesting why you'd have two gate, well, you just kind of identified why.
Well, I think they never touched the first one. I don't think they ever touched the first one. That's why I asked if you ever saw it up.
Yeah, and I couldn't remember if I've ever seen it up, but
Because when I went there and I took the pictures, I remember seeing the gate that went across laying on the ground.
the
Right.
first, the one I
The
saw.
first one, yes.
So I just thought, if that was the case, if both gate entrances go into the same area where the concern for dumping was, how come we didn't ask them to
Well,
fix
maybe-
both gates?
Maybe once you drive in there, you see that maybe they don't connect.
Well, so they might not.
Maybe they appear to connect from the road,
Okay,
but maybe and that's why maybe they never touched the other one, because by putting the new gate in further,
yeah,
they cut off that
that's
other
possible.
entrance.
Yeah, I didn't stop it.
So it's very possible that that's why it's still
Yeah.
laying there.
Right.
On my way there tomorrow
Yeah,
afternoon.
but again,
We'll do them.
Yeah, oh, yeah, we gotta.
if we can get it before it fills up with trash, it's a little easier.
Oh, yeah,
And,
Thank you.
you know, maybe there's nothing there. I just happened
Take
to
a look.
look and say, you know, is it now still a potential for vehicles?
We'll take a look.
Number two.
Number two was, I think we all have in our packet, something in reference that Jack attached.
Mm-hmm.
And not to get in depth on the topic, but it had just come to my attention this week. I guess there is going to be some road construction taking place this summer, culvert work. And Jack brought the topic up in terms of how that could impact trash service. So we may want to, if not, let's talk about tonight, but maybe put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Well, I was thinking about it myself, actually, and,
You don't want to talk about it too deeply because it's not a topic.
oh, okay,
So we'll put it on the agenda for next week.
okay.
I just want to make a notation. I didn't know if both of you were aware of what
Yeah.
that project, okay. So,
Yeah, I
first,
actually read through it.
Yep.
And I've read some on the amended comment
okay,
about it. So Jack has taken note and we'll discuss it in 2 weeks.
yeah.
And back in the day,
There you go.
The thought was, and I don't know if in the interim,
That's why we keep you around. You lived it.
I don't know if in the interim before the next meeting, given the time frame at the end of March, whether or not it's prudent for the board to want to have a discussion with the select board about this and potentially how it impacts trash or to get a full understanding, unless you're already in on the details and how that's going to be handled, maybe it's not a concern.
I do not think it's a concern. Because I think that we're gonna be able to do, the closure is here, so that half, it's not all of Providence.
I don't know, let me just say this. I don't want to get into too much of it tonight because it's an agenda, but I'm just gonna say this. I spoke to Dan Byer. It's gonna be a one and done deal. The project's gonna start and be done in 3 months. So the project is, they're ripping everything out. There
Right.
will be no lanes, period. It's just gonna be a
That's
big
exactly
crevice.
right. But there are roads that go off of Providence Road that go up. And there's roads that go the other way from going down what's the little street
Yeah,
there?
we're probably going too deep into it.
Okay,
All right.
all right. I
All right, we'll
won't,
put it on the agenda though.
okay, I won't say any,
That's all we got.
I won't say any more.
All right.
Trying
I
to,
won't,
trying to abide by the rules.
no more.
Anything else under topics not anticipated?
No.
All right, we'll move on to good and welfare for the board. Anybody have anything?
I do not.
Joyce?
Nope.
Nope.
I did have something about this, but I'll let it go.
I think the only thing that I saw
Sorry.
was, there still seems to be a lot of turmoil being caused by the vaccine recommendations
Mhm.
or lack of
Ah,
recommendations. There is some childhood diseases that are creeping up,
No kidding. Me too.
numbers in the wrong direction. So
Absolutely.
That,
jerk
that's
off.
something that needs more
Yeah.
monitoring and, hopefully they'll get it under control before, we revert back to the 40s and 50s.
Are you referencing Massachusetts specifically or just in general in the country?
State of Mass, the state, I'm sorry, the country,
In the country.
Yeah, I mean.
just
it's
lack of,
one those
or
things.
lack
Are
of,
you kidding?
good guidance.
We went backwards. I mean, we're backwards. We're going backwards.
Fortunately, we have Jack, the epidemiologist through the partnership, and he provides us with a weekly report and keeps us up to date on it. And, we have and always will, should the board feel the need to, we can stand up a clinic locally anytime we want.
All right.
Yeah, it's important to know that for people out there, irrespective of recommendations coming from whatever source, all the vaccines are still available to anybody who wants them.
Right.
So that's
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's been some confusion. So I'm hoping that things will get clearer.
well, as I understand it, what they've done from the Fed level is they basically just have taken 5 vaccines off the list of recommended. It was 17, now it's down to 12. That's the only change that I understand they made. So the concern might be whether or not those 5 are still a concern to people in terms of, geez, was that a good recommendation to make? But nonetheless, even if the agency has, in their view, taken them off their list of recommended vaccines, all those vaccines are available for everybody if they choose to want to get them.
Right, but I think the confusion is because at the federal level, they've been taken off the recommended list.
Yep.
Anybody that doesn't have the proper guidance, and I'll say by a pediatrician,
Mhm.
that may create some confusion,
Well, again,
and, unfortunately, the numbers are rising.
Mhm.
And that's a direction we don't want to go in. I mean, some childhood illnesses that have been wiped out.
Polio.
We
We haven't had
don't want
polio.
them
We
coming
never
back.
got.
well, we're very fortunate here within our state of Massachusetts. The structure is pretty solid. And, for our local board of health, the town of Mendon, not much more we can do. We have local and we want to extend the concern to the state. But now if you're getting into discussions about other states, that's
Right.
way beyond our purview and way beyond what we could
Right.
do anything about.
Right.
I would just say a note to people out there in general. Vaccines are out there. If you feel you need to get them, get them.
I would say it, not if you feel if you feel that you need to do it. I think it's important to say, this is a very important thing for your child.
Well, I will say that some of the vaccines, there's a quote unquote risk guidance around them. So it is conceivable that in some situations, certain individuals, children, are not in the risk categories. And I think where the concern comes in, now it's confusion, but concern. If my child isn't in this risk category, do I really need to expose the child to this particular vaccine? If, when you add up all the risks, as opposed to saying across the board, every child needs to follow this protocol of 17 vaccines. There are risk guidelines that accompany those.
Were you in part of the getting your measles, mumps and,
Oh, yeah, I got the.
right? Were you, how old were you when you had that?
Oh, God, I don't know. As a kid,
You
I
were
can't remember
baby.
back that
I
far.
was a baby, but,
Oh, yeah, I mean, you didn't
but
get.
they,
to school.
but you have to understand, you're going back 60 years.
I do understand that.
Right.
I
So,
understand that
so
perfectly.
there, and I would say specifically, as far as MMR goes, that's a given. Nobody should not have MMR.
Or the polio vaccine.
Right. I'm talking about
Or-
the ones that have certain risk guidelines that are not as definitive, that have a variation of question as to whether or not the person needs that. MMR, I don't think is, in my view, debatable. That's one of those, should have it, gotta have it.
Right,
And I would say that about those other ones.
right.
But there are some that have some variables about them. Those are the ones that have a little question. That's all.
I guess the last thing I'll say on this is, I guess my immediate concern with seeing the numbers go up and knowing that parents are starting to sign their kids up for summer camps, that there could be some unnecessary exposure risks.
Yeah.
It could occur during those great opportunities to go to summer camp and make new friends. And we'll have to see in the fall if there are any influences.
And that's one of those risk elements. Is your child going to participate in a public program such as a camp? Well, okay, if so, now you're exposing the child. So now you're confirming that exposure. Well, okay, that's something that the parent should be taking into account and maybe wanting to have that vaccine. That's all.
Moving on. Motion to adjourn. Well, actually, do we want to set our next meeting?
Well, yeah, let's do that.
Hey, you got it.
What do you got?
I have April 8th.
Oh, we can't meet that night.
No?
Tonight before my birthday.
Yeah, it's the night of mine,
I know, we're together.
and I don't celebrate. So. All right, April 8th, we'll be at 7:00.
7 PM.
What?
I won't be at that.
Okay. You won't be. Let's make it April 9th.
It's Thursday on my birthday.
It's your birthday?
Yeah.
Ah, I could go either way.
On Tuesday.
I
Oh, no,
can't-
you have a meeting on Tuesday.
I work Tuesday
Okay.
nights.
Yeah.
I just can't, because I wouldn't be
I'm-
able to do the night either, because I have
Yeah.
time.
I was
No, that's fine. So April 8th, 7 PM,
Okay.
going to 7.
right? Well, we're in April.
I know.
All right, awesome. Now I'll need a motion to adjourn, please.
The other thing that before we adjourn, oh my God, the money for the students, do we have anybody that's?
Nobody has given me anything yet.
Big word. Yeah,
Team effort.
I'm gonna put a reminder out to the schools that's on my Outlook calendar as a reminder to remind people I haven't received anything.
okay.
For the scholarship.
Oh, I missed the
Scholarship.
Scholarship.
Yeah, I was wondering about it. That's the end of my talk.
I know one school last year waited till the last minute to submit everybody's at the same time, so that may be what's happening now.
So we need a motion and a second.
I move we expire here.
Make the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Need a second?
Second,
All in favor? Tom, aye.
Joyce, I.
Al and I. Thank you very
Good
much.
night, everyone.